that there's still a litmus test of journalism that you have to pass. You can't come on TV and just make up things and say things. That happens on X. Please don't give me the eyebrow furrow as if you don't know what I'm talking about. It happens often on X. I can go and say the color is blue and I will be met with so many disrespectful remarks. No one's regulating the N-word. No one's regulating the criticism. No one is regulating how people are treated.
How much government regulation of the First Amendment are you for?
Let me tell you something. If I came on here and I just started calling you all kind of names, do you think the bosses would let me continue to do that?
I mean, it happens to me occasionally. I don't know if you watch the show.
It doesn't happen to you, but it doesn't happen for me. And I know that I wouldn't be able to do that. There's a level of professionalism in what we do here because we are journalists and we adhere to something, at least morally. And there is no moral compass on this thing called.
You're also having a.
You don't have the right to not be called the N-word. You don't have the right to not be offended. I don't have the right to not be called certain names, which is proven to me, if I didn't already know it, in my comment section almost every single day. You have human rights, you have God-given, constitutionally protected rights, and you have the right to not have those be infringed upon or disrespected or discarded. But none of those include the right to emotional safety. They do, however, include the right to free speech. And so this really shouldn't even be a debate at all. It is not the government's job to regulate speech. It is not the government's job to make sure no one calls you the N-word or they are punished if they do. It's not the government's job to regulate information and the share of information and to determine what is true and what is not true and what is dangerous and what is not dangerous. It's not the government's job. If you have a problem with the way that X or any of these platforms are run, and trust me, I have no shortage of criticisms for all of them, including X, you have the right, the ability to get off the apps, to not engage. You have that right. But it is not the government's job to come in and police people's speech. The government doesn't have the right to do this, but also they don't even have the ability to do this. They lack the public trust to do this. They are the ones who were telling me that I was going to die if I didn't get a shot or wear a mask, that I was going to end the life of someone's grandma, that it was a pandemic of the unvaccinated. And guess what? I'm still alive and I have not ended anyone's life. Y'all, the journalists and the government, are not the ones to be policing speech. If indeed that is something that happens, which it should never happen, y'all are not on the committee. You have lost a leg to stand on in this argument because you are yourselves, you are liars, you are biased, you are hypocrites. You don't actually practice what you preach. You want for the censorship to go in one direction. And if you get something wrong or lie about something, well then oopsie daisy, it's just an accident. You don't actually want the government to police your speech. Even though you spread misinformation, even though you call people names, you just want it to go in a certain direction. You guys are not the ones to be regulating speech. But you mentioned a moral compass, and this is actually why the founders specified that our Constitution was designed for a moral and religious people, and it's unsuited for any other. We're no longer a moral religious people. We do not have a shared set of values. And so that's why we have these issues where people want to come in, maybe they're even well-intentioned, and they want to regulate speech because we are a disparate people and we have a disparate set of values. We don't share the same moral framework. And so people want to come in and force a moral framework upon us, a shared moral framework, when really it's the opposite. We're supposed to have a shared moral framework as our founders did, as our country did at the time of its founding. And then we're supposed to put liberty, recognize liberty on top of that. Because liberty, these rights, including the right to free speech, they can't really survive for very long if people don't have a shared moral framework. If people aren't a moral and religious people, if people aren't Christian people, these rights cannot survive. Because you're going to have bad actors, well-intentioned or otherwise, who come in and try to force a moral framework upon us and have to step on rights to do that.